Good afternoon, Don Palayo checking in with you guys. Today is Sunday, August 24th, 2025. A lot going on in the news and the media. Of course, Donald Trump takes Washington and maybe coming to a town near you pretty soon. It sounds like. I think it's pretty interesting what he's trying to do. I think he's tired of seeing our once great American cities being destroyed by all this kind of cancer in our cities, it's unfortunate that we have all this violence and thuggery in the cities. It's like I don't think this is a race thing. I think he wants to see American cities be great again, and especially he started with Washington D.C. I think because it's the nation's capital. Um, I think there's a feeling of he wants to make our cities good for everybody. He wants everybody to benefit from having cities where they can feel at calm, at peace living in. Right now, a lot of these cities, just at least large sections of our cities, are just too violent. People have got to stop trying to be, violent thugs out here. I mean, it's not the way to go with life. Just being parts of gangs and things like that. It's just not a good way to lead your life. So Trump's bringing in the National Guard and taking care of business, trying to clear it out. I still have questions about when the National Guard leaves, what's going to happen after. Will it just go back to being the same, or maybe this will inspire the residents to start trying to change things in their cities? I think the people have a lot more power than they think they do, and I'm hoping they'll start with Washington D.C. and maybe this will incentivize the people to think a little higher, elevate their thoughts, really think of ways of how they could improve maybe not their own personal lives, but the communities that they live in for their children and grandchildren. And I think that's the way we really all need to start thinking is about what kind of communities we want to leave behind for our kids and grandkids. And so Trump's trying to change the cities, trying to improve it. That's going to be a Herculean effort, and I think it's going to take longer. It's a very complex problem, I think, in our cities. It's more of a cultural problem than a race issue to me. So we need to change the culture in the cities. I think a lot of that starts with education. One of the things that have discussed in the past with people that I think would be a good idea. I'm not exactly sure how well it would work, is have an offering where it would have to be probably government funded, but it would require more investment in education. But I think about taking these kids out of the inner cities and having like boarding schools that the government, maybe a government run type boarding school where these kids are taken out of this environment which is not really a great environment for them to be brought up in. And this would be an option. I mean, you can't mandate this, but it would be an option. It would be a school where the kids would be taught how to behave, how to act, how to speak, how to control their emotions, and also learn talents and skills that they could use to earn a good living. And I think that this would be a good idea. It would take some government funding. It would take some willingness on the part of the parents to have their children, for a portion of the year living at a school. Because I think they need to be removed from that environment that they're growing up in. Some of these environments in these inner cities are just really not good. These children are not being taught the way they need to be taught from an early age. And I think that would benefit the communities there in the cities long term. Um, so anyway, this has been one of my ideas for a while. I'm hoping that we would all like to see our cities be places where people do not fear going out in the evenings. That's kind of the whole point of this whole thing. So that's part of what has been going on this week. The stock market had a big rally on Friday. Jerome Powell, the Fed chairman, came out and kind of hinted that there may be interest rate cuts coming. More than likely, it'll just be 0.25%. I'd be really surprised if he did more than that. But it gives a little bit of relief to people. I think we are in a new economic environment right now. See, the Federal Reserve, people have been really going after Jerome Powell for not cutting rates sooner, but he's operating under the old school rules. He's operating under, we need to keep inflation around 2%. We've got a decent job market, so we're not going to cut rates if we don't need to. But I really feel like our economy now depends on lower rates for business growth, for development. We're getting into this tech-based economy where companies require large sums of investment to really get these businesses off the ground, especially when you start talking about AI and quantum computing. And we're going to have to build out our energy grid too. Something's got to happen with the energy grid soon. We're already seeing energy stocks, companies that specialize in the building out of the electrical grid. The stock prices are already rising, but I think that still has some room to run because I haven't really seen that a whole lot's changed with our grid, and so I think there's still a lot of investment that's going to happen to the electrical grid over the next 10 years. So I'm thinking about allocating some of my investment dollars specifically to the companies involved in that. You can Google that and find the companies that would benefit from government investment in the power grid. There's some utility companies. There's technology companies that work in that space, managing the flow of the grid and everything. So anyway, something to look into. I am going to be increasing my investment next year as I'm going to be beginning to put more money into my IRAs next year. I'm already doing money into my retirement plan at work, but next year I plan to make a full IRA contribution to my Roth IRA. And a lot of that I'm going to be distributing into that space, into the power grid companies, into a little bit more towards quantum computing. I'll buy some traditional index funds as well, S&P 500, that sort of thing. But I'm going to be putting investments, quantum computing, specific investments into quantum computing and the power grid. So that's kind of the way my thinking is right now on all of this. Unfortunately, I think we're a little bit behind the 8 ball on the whole build out of the grid. I think China has developed their grid a lot better than we have. China is still hurting. The problem is that China can do whatever they want. America, we've got so many rules and regulations that we've self-imposed regulations and all of this, and so it makes it tough for us to like these nuclear reactors. We need to put some more nuclear reactors into service to provide a fairly clean fuel source to provide the energy output that we need. So all of this is going to be coming, I think, over the next 10 to 20 years, more development that way. So that's something that, for my time horizon in terms of my retirement, I think it's a perfect space for me to be invested in. I am I've been thinking a lot here lately about I just turned 49 years old. I have been married twice, divorced twice. I know what the numbers look like for people that have been through two divorces, and if they get married a third time, how likely it is that they'll get divorced a third time. I'm very familiar with the rules. But I'm not really thinking about getting married again. But I am starting to feel like maybe I need to put myself out there and find another relationship. I've gone through phases with this. I I really didn't see myself pushing this very much. I haven't had a very good experience with relationships in general. Um, I still feel very jaded about the whole thing. I still don't really feel like anyone really ever cared that much about me. It's like I never felt like anyone did. And it's like, I don't know. To me, it's like, it's kind of like, what's the point? What's the point in being in a relationship when you don't really feel like the other person cares that much? It's like, what's the point in this? You know, what are we doing this for? Um, I still have some of that. So I don't know. I I guess we're just gonna have to see. But I've been thinking about it more and more here lately. I've been divorced for about 11 years now. I've been on probably 10 dates in those 11 years. The last date that I was on was probably 3 years ago or better. I'm pretty much at peace. I'll be honest with you guys, I do enjoy having my own space, my peace and quiet. I never got that when I was married. When in my last marriage, sometimes I would go to the bathroom, not because I needed to use the bathroom, but just to sit in there and get a few minutes to myself. You know? And it's true. It's true. I mean, and sometimes we need space to ourselves, and it's hard to get that when you're married and you have kids, especially. Um, I don't know. I don't know. So it's still something for me to think about. I don't know if I really want to go back down that road. I think there's still some kind of sadness about growing old by myself, you know. There's a little bit of sadness to that. It's not the way I saw things going. Um, we'll see. I'll keep y'all posted on that. I'm not really sure. I haven't met anybody or anything like that. I'm just thinking out loud. Um. Anyway, I'm going to. I might dash this afternoon. I will say the door dashing has been getting better here lately. I think the summer break out of school, the door dashing seemed to die, and now that kids are back in school, the door dashing is picking back up again. I had my best week this week since May, so that tells me that it's the school thing. So so we're doing good now again. So I'm gonna have to really crush it in the non-summer months. So we'll be back out there tomorrow. I may go out this evening. I might just chill this evening. I'm still trying to decide. I feel kind of tired. I did go to the gym a couple times this week. I only went twice, but that's more than I've been doing. So this week my goal is to go 3 times. I'll probably go tomorrow morning. I always like to get my week started off with checking off a box, right? That way I only need to go 2 more times during the rest of the week. I went this past Monday and I went Saturday. So this week I'll probably go Monday, maybe Wednesday morning, and then Saturday. Well, something like that. So anyway, I'm going to get going. You guys have a great day. This is Dom Palayo checking out.